Okay, so we've talked a lot about y equals mx plus b, but we haven't really formalized it as much as we're going to formalize it in this lesson. So we're going to look at chapter 6.1 from the textbook, the equation of a line in slope y-intercept form. So that's our y equals mx plus b. So in this lesson, we're going to identify our slope and y-intercept from a graph, create the equation. We're going to graph a line when given slope and y-intercept, and we're going to interpret a graph. So let's see, example 1. We need to identify the slope and the y-intercept from the graph. So the easiest one to pick out is always the y-intercept. So this one is wherever it crosses the y-axis. So in this case, my y-intercept, which is my b value, is -5. To figure out the slope, we have to do a little bit more investigation. So we have to look at our graph. We have to go along our line, and we have to find a spot where the line crosses, oh, like right there, crosses a grid line in a nice, perfect location. If we kept going, see, these don't really line up on a corner grid. Oh, there's another spot. So that's what we need to look for, is we need to look for another spot on the line that's a nice, easy point to read. We can draw out our rise and run triangle. So here I can see that my rise is 2. My run is 1, 2, 3, is 3. So my slope, which is my m value, remember, is rise over run. We've also talked about that as the change in y over the change in x. So rise is our change in y. Run is our change in x because it's going sideways, right? Put in our numbers. So our rise is 2. Our run is 3. We're going upwards and to the right, so it's going to be a positive answer. So now I have my y-intercept and my slope value. So nice, easy peasy. Let's pop that into our equation. We know from our basic equation that y equals mx plus b. So our equation for this graph is going to be y equals m, which is 2 over 3, x minus 5, because my y-intercept is -5. Okay, let's try example B. So now we still need to figure out our y-intercept, which is our where it crosses our y-axis. So we see that point is right here. So for this question, my y-intercept, which is my b value, is going to be a +3. And then for my slope, let's read along the line here. Oh, there's a nice point where it crosses the grid. There's a nice point where it crosses the grid. There's a nice point. So we got lots of nice good points we could choose from. Notice how to get from one point to the next, we have to go down and to the right. So because we're going to go down and to the right, my slope, which is my rise over my run. So my m value is just my change in y over my change in x. When I figure these out, I notice since I'm going down, my y value is going down 2 over 1. If I had picked a different one, let's say I wanted to go from my y-intercept and I wanted to take it down, let's go all the way to here and across. Well, that's still going to give me the same answer. So let's think about this here. If I had done still slope, it's still rise over run. So my m value is still change in y over change in x. In this case, I went down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I went down 6. And then my run would be 1, 2, 3. And if I figure this number out, I'm going to get the same answer as this one. So the smaller triangle is just giving me my fraction in lowest terms. So I've got 6 divided by 3, so that would give me a slope of -2. And in the first one that I had done, -2 divided by 1, well, that's just -2 as well. So it doesn't matter which triangle I had chosen, as long as I'm following the right steps to figure out my rise and my run, we've still got it. So let's write out what our equation is going to be. So we've got y equals mx plus b. So y equals slope, which is negative 2x plus b, which is 3. Good. My next two examples are a little bit more interesting. So let's look at this. Here I've got a line. Let's see, there's my x-axis. Where's my line? Oh, my line is all the way up here. And notice that it's a horizontal line. So that's pretty interesting. So horizontal lines are a bit of a special case. So let's think about this one. I know we've talked about it once before, but let's just recap what these things mean, right? So my y-intercept is still right here. There's my y-intercept. Y-intercept, so that's my b value, which is 4. Now, I can't draw a triangle there, right? There's no triangle possible. I see I can run forever, but my rise is 0, like I can't go anywhere. So when I go to put that into my slope formula, so knowing that slope is rise over run, well, if my rise is 0, it doesn't matter what number I have down here. 0 divided by anything will always equal 0. So my slope for this one, since it's 0, well, let's look at that in the equation, okay? So I've got y equals mx plus b. So y equals 0 times x plus b, in this case, is 4. So horizontal lines will always look like y equals a number, no x. This is what the equation of a horizontal line is going to look like. So wherever its y-intercept is, that's the equation. Okay. So let's take a look over here, this one now, so I can still kind of see it. Let's highlight this line. So here, there's my y-axis. Here, there's my new line. There's the line I have to come up with. So this time, I need to talk about what vertical lines are going to look like. So same concept, same discussion here. What's my y-intercept? Do you see a y-intercept? No. So let's maybe write that down. No y-intercept. There's no y-intercept. So there's no number for it. It's just not there. Okay, you can't say 0 because 0 would be actually at 0. Okay, so don't say 0. Can't do that. Let's see. What can I write? Well, do I have a slope? So remember, slope is rise over run. Well, here my rise is forever, and my run is 0. So my slope formula, which is rise over run, I have whatever number I want over 0. Well, you can't divide by 0. Divide by 0 is not allowed. It's not allowed. Can't do it. Can't do it. It's illegal. Your calculator will give you some form of an error. It is 100% not allowed. So what can we do? We don't have anything for a slope. We don't have anything for a b value. All we know is if we look at this is that x is always 2. Well, so as an equation, well, I'm just going to be able to write that x is 2. And that's it. That's it. That is all you can write for a vertical line is what x is. So horizontal lines are whatever y is. Vertical lines are whatever x is. That's the only thing you can do. All right, time to graph some lines. So here I'm giving you the slope, so my m value, and the y-intercept, which is my b value. So I'm being told my slope, which is m, my y-intercept, which is b, and I want to write the equation line and graph it. So we know y equals mx plus b. Well, I'm giving all my numbers here, so let's just pop them in. M is 3 over 4. X, b is 2, minus 2. So minus 2. Well, that was easy. Okay, let's graph it. Minus 2 means I got to come down here and drop a dot there. And then my slope is telling me where to go. So that 3 over 4 means I need to go up 3, right 4. Because there's my rise and my run. I'm being told that 3 over 4 is my rise over run. So I take my dot and then I count and I go 1, 2, 3, and then I go over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my new dot. I can do it again up further. 1, 2, 3, over 4. Oh, I'm off my grid. Oh, well, that's okay. We can count the opposites. So opposite of up is down. 1, 2, 3. Opposite of right is to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. And ta-da, magical wonderfulness here. We can draw a graph. We can draw a line. Let's see. Dot, through the dot, through the dot. We did it right. It should line up perfectly. Well done. Let's look at our second example. So here I've got a slope which is -3, and I've got a y-intercept that is 0. So 0, let's draw my y-intercept here. Okay, easy. And let's maybe figure out what my equation is. So we've got y equals mx plus b. So y equals -3x plus 0. Oh, so I could have just written that as y equals -3x. All right, so let's look at this. Let's figure out what my slope is going to be. So, interesting. Slope is rise over run, but I'm only given one number. Told it's negative, so that means I'm going to have to go down. Well, when there's no number underneath, give it the fraction. Turn it into a fraction. So just make it over 1. So now I know to find my next point, I got to go down 3, right 1. And you have to go right, otherwise you go in the wrong direction. So let's reiterate. Y-intercept is 0. So there's my 0. Now let's go down 3. 1, 2, 3, right 1. Dot. Down 3. 1, 2, 3, over 1. Dot. If I went the opposite direction, if I went up 3, 2, 3, I have to go to the left 1. 1, 2, 3, 1. And again, assuming you did it all correctly, you should be able to create a nice, perfectly straight line. And there you have it. Now, when we graph lines, we should always make them look like actual lines that keep going forever and ever and ever, because that's what these are. So we should have arrows, arrow, 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 because the line doesn't stop. Okay, a few more to do. Let's see, we've got y equals mx plus b. So in this case, there's my m. So I've got y equals -1/2 x. B is 5, so plus 5. So we're going to put a dot at plus 5, and then we're going to go down 1, right 2. 1, 2, dot. Down 1, right 2, 2, dot. Down 1 over 2. Down 1 over 2. Okay, I'm off my graph. Let's draw my line. Connect up the dots I know. Finish it off with a couple, Finish it off with a couple of endpoints here. So I've got my arrow, and there you go. How did I know it went this way? Remember, our slope is -1/2, so that means I'm going down 1, right 2. All right, let's try the last one. Let's see how it goes. Slope of 0, y-intercept of 6. Oh, remember what we said about that 0 slope? So y-intercept of 6 means here. Okay, so let's see what all this looks like in my equation. Y equals mx plus b. Y equals 0 times x plus 6. So my equation is just y equals 6. So that means y is always 6. Slope of 0 means a nice straight line through 6. And again, it goes on and on and on and on and on, because lines don't end unless you're given an endpoint, a couple of arrows, and you got it. Okay, let's put some words around this. So interpret a linear relation. So we need to identify the slope and the vertical intercept of each linear relation and explain what they mean. Write an equation to describe the relationship. So we've got Tracy's walk. We have a distance and time, and we've seen distance time graphs before, so this isn't too bad. We know that we have a y-intercept here of 5. So my y-intercept is 5. So that would be my b value. That's your starting point, right? Y-intercepts, that's your initial location. Initial location. So to turn that into words, I could say that Tracy started, what is it, 5, look at your graph, meters. So it started 5 meters away from home. Okay, and then what's happening? So to figure out our slope, count down until you find some nice good points. Oh, there's a good point. 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 Lots of people like to use endpoints. Let's use endpoints this time. You could use any of these to draw your triangle with. If we want to do when she hits the y-axis or the x-axis. There's my rise. There's my run. So there's my rise. There's my run. Slope is rise over run, which is change in y, change in x. Any of those work. Let's see, if I did change in y, then I would have, let's think about this. This is at 0.10, 0. This is at 0.05. So my points, there's 1 point, minus the other point, 0, 10, which gives me 5 over -10, which gives me -1/2. So you can write it out that way. We can write it out by counting out our rise, which was down 5 over 10. So down 5 over 10. Oops. You could have done it by looking at just this one, down 1 over 2. Ooh, down 1 over 2. Any of them work. Any of them work. Just fine. All right, so let's finish this one off. Let's write our equation. Y equals mx plus b. Stick in your values. So we've got y equals -1/2 x plus 5. And let's finish off our interpretation. So what did we start with? We said Tracy started 5 meters from home and walked at a constant speed of 0.5 meters per second, or 1/2, either one, and walked at a constant speed of that. And then to deal with the direction, I would say towards home, and then that takes care of my negative. All right, last but not least, let's look at this height of a tomato plant after planting. We've got height, we've got time. Always read your axes, please, when you're interpreting an equation or a graph. We need to identify our slope and our vertical intercept. We need to explain what they mean, and we need to write an equation to describe the relationship. So let's see. My y-intercept here would be 6. So y-intercepts, remember, are initial heights. So the initial height so the initial height was 6 centimeters, because that's what it tells me on the thing. And then the slope is the rate at which the plant grows. So let's look at our graph here and figure out what rate that it's growing at. So starting here, let's count. Oh, there's a good dot. There's a good dot. So let's pick one of these to figure out my rise and my run. Make sure you're watching your scale. Okay, don't just count blocks. You got to watch your scale. So from 10 to 4 would be a rise of 4. And from 1 to 2 would be a run of 1. So 4 would be my rise. 1 would be my run. So my slope, if we did it as the y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, let's see, this point would be at 2 comma 14. This point would be at 1 comma 10. So I would have 14 over 2 minus 10 over 1, 4 over 1. So 4 centimeters per week. Okay, so that coincides perfectly with the triangle we just drew, 4 over 1. Excellent. So the slope at which the rate is the rate at which the plant grows. So let's just finish off that sentence. This plant is growing at 4 centimeters per week. Good. So let's finish it off. Let's write an equation. We know our basic equation is y equals mx plus b. So y equals my slope, which is 4. It's increasing, so it's a plus, x plus 6, which was my initial height. Done.